there's the possibility for saving some money. There's I believe it was a University of Michigan study that was funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. That was, I believe, a randomized controlled trial on this, which is, as you know, the gold standard. So there's quite a bit of evidence base, and I think for me, it took too long to get here, but we can come back to the politics, and I think we all know that there's been some folks being a little gun shy about jumping back into this space because of the way that it was demagogued in the legislative debate. But clearly, whether it's Senator Wyden, who has cared about this for a long time, I think there's a growing group of folks on the other side of the aisle who for a long time, I think, have believed in the policy, but are now feeling a little bit more comfortable on the political side. And of course, the administration now saying this is the type of thing that fits in pretty nicely. So the model, for those of you who haven't seen it, will have about 30 hospice practices serving up to 30,000 Medicare and dual eligible beneficiaries who are hospice eligible. So they have to meet the traditional 6-month definition of hospice eligibility. But rather than enrolling directly in the hospice benefit, these sites will enroll them in the Medicare Choices model, in which they can continue to seek curative care, but the hospice will serve as a sort of care manager, coordinator, and kind of advocate and quarterback for those beneficiaries and their families. Very, very patient-centered model. So to me, very exciting. I think it fits in really nicely across again, this continuum of payment reform opportunities, and they'll have it up and running fairly shortly, and then obviously the goal is to get some data back from the field as quickly as possible. And with the new authority of the Innovation Center, should this model prove to be one that is at least keeping quality the same or improving it and saving a little bit of money by expanding it, then the Innovation Center could make this a permanent part of the Medicare program without going back to Congress, which is really huge. And I have to give my former boss, Senator Baucus, Ambassador Baucus, a lot of credit for putting that in the law. I mean, that's a major handover of policymaking prerogative from the legislative to the executive branch, but I believe it was the right thing to do. So would love to hear feedback for those who have been digging in on this model a little bit. It's a process in which there may be opportunity to make tweaks to the model before it goes live. So I think it'd be really fascinating to hear a little bit about that. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, this is still in the concurrent care model, still a population that has reached quite a bit of advanced state in terms of where their illness stands, with a physician saying 6 months left. And I think one of the interesting questions is there a space here a little bit upstream, if you will, from that, where you get folks who may not be that advanced but are very ill and very sick and have some very complicated needs. And I think the question, and I don't know the answer to this, quite frankly, I would love to have a discussion here about it, is there a space in between, say, this new Medicare Choices concurrent care model and some of these other existing programs, things like ACOs and medical homes, that in my mind, they very well may have beneficiaries who have been attributed to their ACO. They're part of the population that the ACO or the medical home is trying to manage. And I think if they're worth their salt, they're going to look at where is the spending happening, where are there major gaps in quality where we can really move the needle and show improvement. So to me, I think they'll go after those folks, and that may be happening already. But I think the question is this a segment of the population that has such specific and advanced needs that it needs to have its own particular payment data practice support intervention? That very well may be the case. I think one thing to be cognizant of is if part of the goal here is to expand payment to take in more of the episodes of care as patients actually experience them, and thinking about how to manage a population, I worry that we don't want to segment out the entire healthcare market into different types of populations of patients and then potentially risk heading back into kind of a siloed arrangement. So I think that's a tricky policy question that that I think will be next up for the administration as they figure out if there's another dimension here.